All right, well, it's time for another Car Thoughts. I've been thinking about the way that so many people in the church are what I'm starting to call accidental Freudians. And the reason that I say it's accidental is it's because we just live in a culture that is so taken up by Freud's categories that often we don't even realize that the language that we're using has been shifted, and so we sometimes use words from the Bible, but we use them actually with a Freudian assumption behind them, or the cosmology, or I guess the anthropology, the definition of mankind, where mankind comes from and how it's formed. That is the definition comes from the myth that Freud perpetuates or invented, I guess, about where the seat of our selfhood. So here's how I would explain it. Is Freud says that we experience our self, right, our ego, our psyche. We experience that in the way that we live, right? We experience it, we live, and we can be self-aware. We're aware of ourselves. We're aware of how we're experiencing the world. But our ego, our selfhood, is formed as the product of the conflict of our id, right? The fundamental desires that you might say evolved or come from our that come from our animal nature, right? That come from our body or our instincts, right? We've got these desires to do certain things, and but if we just always follow our id, we can't have society, right? Because we would act like animals, and so society functions as a super ego, a corporate ego, where all of society tells you, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that, right? Society does that, and that conflict between our desires and what society tells us we can't do, that suppression of our desires, in that conflict, our ego is formed. So our experience of our selfhood is formed by this conflict of our desires and the expectations of society. And all of our emotional responses, all of our ways that we respond to the things that we run into, kind of the phenomena that we run into, all of those responses are created out of that conflict. We want one thing, but we can't have it if society is going to continue, and so it is suppressed by that external force of society. So if you want to get rid of the if we're having trouble in our psyche, in our ego, in our experience of our life and of our selfhood, you can either shift and change somehow the id, and you can do that according to, depending on who you talk to. Either it's by letting it out, right, like finding a safe way to release the pressure of your that's put on your id, so that you don't get in trouble, or by changing society's expectations of you. And the last 100 years or so, the project so psychoanalysis does the former, and then the project of all of the different kind of social movements to solve violence, to solve different things that happen in mental health crises. All of those end up, you have to change society so that society basically affirms the desires of your id, because it's society's rejection of the desires of your id that is causing the psychosis, right? That Freudian way of thinking is why it makes complete sense to people to think that, you've got folks that they feel transsexual on the inside, and then they feel suppressed by society. And it's not enough to just say, well, you can go do your thing over there in your clubs Friday night. Society has to come along and affirm that it's a good thing that they're doing, because that's the only way to get rid of the psychosis of their ego, right? And so this is why, the rejection of lifestyles can be treated like violence. It can be in an entirely considered, how would you put it? People actually believe that it is violence because they have this assumption that society's job is to create good mental health in the people who have these desires, and society's displeasure at their desires is what's causing their mental health problems. So, and now I don't know many, or if any, I don't know of any Christians that would say that's totally how I believe that the ego is created. That's how our psyche, the experience of our own psyche, is created, and psychosis is fixed by means of the society changing, right? I don't know any Christians that would come out and say that, but it has become the normal way of talking about. I guess I would say it's become embedded in the definitions of many of the words that we use by society, and we don't redefine or properly biblically define many of these words. So something like guilt, I think, is a really good example. When we talk about guilt, what we mean is our experience of the feeling of guilt, because that is the Freudian definition of the word guilt, that we've done something internally, or we have internal desires, and then what ends up happening is the church or Christians tend to redefine it so that then God's society, right, either meaning the church or or maybe in the healthiest version of it, the triune life of God, the family of God, God's opinion, is the superego, and our desires are still the id, and so guilt is the experience of our id coming into conflict with God's version of the superego. And so this is why you get people growing up saying, well, the church made me feel so guilty all the time, and that's why I left, right? They deconstruct because the church made them feel guilty, and it's the church's job to not make them, to create a healthy environment for their psyche, to create in the conflict, to get rid of the conflict between their id and God's opinion. And it didn't do that, and so I felt guilty, and so I'm leaving the church. Or that was, but really, that's not the right definition of the word guilt, biblically speaking. Guilt is a judicially objective issue that has to do with God's judicial opinion, right? When you say our word opinion even has come to mean something different, because we'll talk about things like the opinion of the court, and the opinion. An opinion is when somebody has jurisdiction over something, right? So I have jurisdiction over my taste buds, so I can have a true opinion over whether or not I like vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream, and obviously the answer is vanilla. So So if you've got, and I have every right to that opinion because I have jurisdiction over my tastes, and that's what makes them tastes, is they're in my jurisdiction. But if I say I have a taste for shoplifting, and that's why I shoplift, I don't have the jurisdiction over other people's property, and so my opinion isn't actually that isn't authoritative in that situation, right? Opinion is a jurisdictional term, and so God's opinion is a legal reality. So when we say, for example, that God, let's say God hates when we murder our neighbor. What should we use? We'll just keep using theft. Right? God hates when we steal. Right? And the reason that is important is because God has jurisdiction over the world, and so His opinion is a legal reality. So if I steal when God's opinion is against it, the problem is not the conflict between my desire to steal and God's superego that says don't steal, that causes a conflict that my ego comes out of and I feel guilty. And the problem is either I need to change my desires or God needs to change His opinion, right? That's not the issue when it comes to guilt. The issue when it comes to guilt is a legal issue. Did I break the law? Am I judicially guilty in a court? And the court is established at the second coming of Christ. So when Jesus comes back, that court has to do with, or when He sits on the great white throne of judgment, that court is established to enforce the legal opinions of God. Right? The legal opinions of God are Jesus is going to enforce, because He's been seated at the right hand of God to enforce the legal opinions of God. And guilt has to do with whether or not we are going to be pronounced innocent or pronounced guilty by that objective throne, right? That's what guilt has to do with. So justification has to do with the declaration that we are innocent at that throne, right? So justification in the present by faith comes from a belief about what will happen at the end of time, right? So that future declaration of innocence is brought into the present by faith, right? That's what justification by faith is about. And so the guilt is taken away, and the guilt is an objective reality. It's not something that happens in our feelings, in our head, in our heart, right? So we experience the feeling of shame, right? We might experience the feeling of conviction, meaning that the belief that we are guilty, sometimes that's what we mean by the word guilt, because there is a psychological experience that comes along with the realization that you will be declared guilty, right? That is a real thing, but the will be declared guilty is an objective thing, and it doesn't arise in a Freudian way, the way that we just have this assumption of Freudianism. So I've been thinking, a lot about this, and want to figure out a better way to communicate it, because obviously right now, if it's something that takes that long, I need to work it out. But maybe there's maybe there's something that you see that would help me communicate it more clearly, because it takes a while to work out the definition. When you've been using a word with a different definition, then it can become difficult to explain, because you have to back into a definition, back into the assumptions, the cosmology behind the definition, and because every word has embedded within it a lot of assumptions. So those are the car thoughts for the day. Let me know if there's anything that it makes you think about.